We choose to serve you, to follow where you lead, to be your witness, to be your hands and feet. We say yes, my soul says yes. Whatever you have for me, whatever lies ahead, we say yes. My soul says yes. Whatever you have for me, whatever lies ahead, we say yes. Oh, yes. In every season, we can trust in you, for you are with us. You are always good. We say yes. My soul says yes. Whatever you have for me, whatever lies ahead, we say yes. My soul says yes. Whatever you have for me, whatever lies ahead, we say yes. My soul says yes. We know that you are for us, not against us, not against us. We know that you are for us, not against us, not against us. We know that you are for us, not against us, not against us. We know that you are for us, not against us.
Good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome. Hello to everybody for our Sunday Night Live, which we have been doing now for, we're 2 weeks short of 1 year, which is crazy to think. But you're all so welcome. Great to see 250 devices ready to go right from the start, folks, which is amazing. It's been great just to have this community on a Sunday night. And maybe for you, this is your first night with us. We are so glad to have you. We love welcoming new people every week. And you're so welcome to our online community. And this is a community where we just share stories of what Jesus has done in people's lives. And maybe you learned about Jesus in RE years ago, and maybe you've heard about him. Well, these stories just are there to show us that he is real, he's alive, and he has power to transform. And so tonight I am so excited to have, we're flying him in on the airwaves tonight, all the way from Scotland. It was a pretty cheap transfer tonight, because airplanes are not, I think, allowed at the moment, don't know. But anyway, we're going over to Scotland in a few moments' time, and we're going to be joined by Steph Macleod. We've been playing much of his music material over the lockdown, which has been such a blessing. It's going to be amazing to just hear the person behind that music tonight. So you guys are in for a treat. He has an incredible story to tell, and I know it's going to give hope, and it is going to just really bless you tonight. So what I want you all to do tonight for me, we do this every week. We don't want your money, we don't want your food, but one thing we do ask for every week is that you'd get your device, you'd click the share button, put this onto your wall. If you have WhatsApp, send it into WhatsApp groups. If you're part of a church, would you be up for maybe sharing it onto your church? We would just love to get this out to as many, because it's going to be incredible. It's going to be amazing. And a real life story of someone who was in a real difficult place in his life. Not just on one occasion, but how Jesus came, even when he was in a low place. And so really looking forward to that. We're going to hear some of his music as well. So really looking forward to that. And just for the next 2 minutes, if you're willing to say hello in the comments, we'll take some of the comments and say hello to some of the folk who are on tonight. And then we're going to bring Steph in, in 2 minutes at 10 past, and that'll be amazing. So there's 330 devices. That's fantastic. And to everybody who's on YouTube, we say hello to you guys as well. And if you're tuning in there, thank you so much for tuning in. So there's Richard Sinton. Great to have you, brother. Thank you so much for tuning in. Fiona McFarland, hello to you. Bert McMaster from Enniskillen. Hi, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. There's Betty Swindle, just a few doors down. Great to have you, Betty, and no doubt Leslie too. There's Susan from Kesh. Great to have you. And Linda Johnson. Linda, hello to you. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And Anne Suttle. There's Ochnachoy with Nigel and Jacqueline. Great to have you. Let me just go down to the bottom here. And folks, to those who have shared it, thank you so much for sharing it. And to those who are thinking about it, go on ahead, click the share button. It'll take you 2 seconds. And Steph has given a free CD tonight to every person who shares it. So I'm only joking. Please don't take me serious with that, okay, guys? Sharon Slack, great to have you. Good evening. So looking forward to this. Amen. So have I. There's Coleraine. Great to have yous all tonight. There's my wife giving me a cup of tea. Fantastic. And biscuits. My favourite biscuit, bourbon creams.
That's not what you call them, though, is it?
No, I call them doggy bickies, but they're brilliant. So there. Yeah. There's James Goldie. Yeah. Send Steph love. All love Goldie. Okay. Very good. That whenever I see that name, I always forget that that's you, James. But there you go. There's Jenny Bowles. Great to have you from Cornafannig. Hello to you. Let me just go down to the very bottom to see who else we have tonight. And if you're just tuning in, say hello. Let us know where you are tuning in from tonight. Great to see all your comments, folks. Thank you so much. You're all so welcome. Wow. So many of you tonight. Thank you so much. You're all so welcome. Jana says, Steph, can you play Still Water, Grace, or Light Beams? Love your voice. Hey? Bert is saying, looking forward to hearing. Yeah, brilliant. From the Derg, David and Jill Porter. Great to have you, folks. And there is, where was it? Yeah, Eleanor says, first time here. Big shout out to Eleanor. Eleanor, welcome to our Sunday night community here. You are so welcome. There's another Scott we have from Perth. That is fantastic. So Steph's not alone tonight. If there's any other Scots watching, you are so welcome tonight. Okay, so 10 past. Let's try and get our guest in. We've over 400 devices on now, which is brilliant. Let's trust this all works for us tonight. So let's try and get Steph. Let's try and get Steph in here.
Good evening.
Class, brilliant. Can you hear me, Steph?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Loud and clear. That was the quickest journey to Ireland you've probably ever made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not that long though, normally. I mean, I think the last flight I was on was to Northern Ireland back in February last year, and you're 25 minutes in the air, and then that's it. So you got enough time to go to the loo.
Yeah. You might not have enough time to get the seatbelt sign off, so you might not even get to the toilet. Tell me this: have you ever been in County Fermanagh before?
Yes, I think I have. But I probably I might be mixing it up because I'm in the car quite a bit, and everywhere has these beautiful names.
Yeah,
everybody's so friendly.
Yeah,
that I've met anyway. I might not have been, but it sounds very familiar. I might have actually been to my friend's wedding there. So
Okay. Well, do you know what? That's very diplomatic. That will keep the Fermanagh people happy tonight.
Okay.
And put it like this, Steph. Before you leave tonight, we will squeeze out of you that you will come and do a gig sometime in Fermanagh, and we'll make sure we get your word on that before you leave tonight.
I'd love to. I absolutely love Ireland, love Northern Ireland. It's my sanctuary. I love going there, especially for the festival in the summer, Open Skies. It's just,
Oh yeah,
it's good for my soul, man. And got some friends that are so close, I would consider them family. So
fantastic. Well, there you go. Look here, whenever you come over, you need to come down to Fermanagh. Some of the best bakers, cooks, hospitality. It's all here. We've got the lakes. I'm telling you, we'll even get you a wee beard haircut if you want. You know, whenever you come down.
okay,
Tell me this.
That's a challenge.
Tell me this. Whereabouts actually in Scotland are you tuning in from tonight?
I'm in the city centre of Edinburgh, so right slap bang. You can see Edinburgh Castle about 20 yards from our street, so it's
Wow.
it's about a mile away, but you can it's on a big hill, but we're right in the city centre.
That's class. That's class. Well, look here. It is really, really good to have you. And I know it's been a very busy period, which we'll talk a wee bit about later on in your story. You're going to open up your heart and your life to us and what life has been like for you. Talk about the person who's most important to you, Jesus. We're going to hear some of your songs. So what I'm going to do right now, just going to play a song that everybody will have heard of, and then we're going to kickstart into your story. And it's a song which we'll maybe talk a wee bit about later on, a new venture that you've been on as well with the Celtic guys. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just going to play a song that Steph is the lead singer in this. We've played this a few times over the time, and just to sort of relax us all and get us ready to hear some of Steph's story, I'm going to play this song. It's called I Stand Amazed. And then, Steph, we're going to talk a bit about your early years growing up in Scotland. So enjoy this opening song tonight, guys.
I stand amazed in the presence of Jesus the Nazarene, and wonder how he could love me, a sinner condemned unclean. How marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. Garden, he prayed not my will but thine. He had no tears for his own needs, but sweat drops of blood for mine. How marvelous, sing, how marvelous, how shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. He took my sins and my sorrows and made them his very own. He bore the burden to Calvary and suffered and
Wow, amazing. And I can see by the comments, guys, you've really enjoyed that. And we'll maybe talk a wee bit about how even that venture started later on. But Steph, thank you so much again for coming on with us tonight and for opening up your story. So tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us where did it all begin? What was life like as a young lad growing up in Scotland, Steph?
Oh, okay. Lonely, only child, only child. Grew up just outside Edinburgh in a small town called Musselburgh, which is a wee fishing town. And mum and dad worked pretty much every hour. They were quite young parents, and my mum's a nurse. My dad was civil servant, and also he was in the Army Reserves, so he was away quite a bit. Quite a high maintenance kid, but I got into music when I was quite young, which seemed to help me to focus. I think that was the first sign that I had an addictive personality, because it just used to bring everything in for me, and found it difficult to make friends. I didn't have any peers to bounce off except my cousins. I spent a lot of time at my grand's actually. My mum and dad worked quite a lot, so I spent quite a bit of time there. My cousin Sarah is probably the closest thing I've got to a sister. She's lovely, lives in the West Coast. Quite an anxious kid. I didn't understand that until quite recently. Quite an anxious kid, and always seeking approval. Didn't really understand that until quite recently. I'll get onto that later. But when I was 15, my parents split for various reasons, and I fell apart. I absolutely fell apart because my home life, even though it wasn't, I would say it wasn't a great environment to grow up for in terms emotionally, because I was I think it was quite a cultural thing as well. It was like, if you're loud and boisterous, you're told to be quiet, and if you're really upset, more than often than not, you're told to be quiet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my parents were good parents. I was never abused in any way. They were very loving, but I was constantly seeking an emotional output or somehow way to understand that, and I couldn't. So when my parents split up, I fell to pieces, and I couldn't deal with it. So I found my solace in alcohol.
And
Wasn't very
Steph, if you mind me just butting in there, when
over it.
your parents split, did you go to live with one or the other, or?
Yeah, I live with my dad. My mum, she went off on she was dealing with some personal issues, and which I don't really want to share, but she was having to deal with some stuff in her life which was important to her, and for more than one reason, that the marriage just fell apart. But I stayed with my dad, and he really looked after me. There was always a roof over my head, even though we were homeless for a bit. But we were in a hotel for a while because we lost our house, and then there was always food on the table. It was just a very turbulent time, and this was in 1995, I think, 96. But I can't remember anybody actually saying to me, "How are you doing?" or "How are you feeling through all this? How are you coping?" and stuff like that. It was just, you just kind of got your head down and got on with it. And I didn't understand that until quite recently as well. My grandfather was a raging alcoholic, and I didn't understand that. So my dad grew up in an environment where probably that just didn't exist. So I've learned to forgive a lot through that. You know what I mean? But it's he really did look after me, and to keep a long story very, very short, I found my comfort in alcohol because it took that stress and brokenness away. And then a couple of months after that, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time at a party, and I almost got beaten to death by somebody, and who was quite a bit older than me. And I was just utterly terrified of everything after that, and I nearly lost my life. And I was diagnosed with PTSD about 4 years ago, and that was the first main time. And my addiction just progressed dramatically after that because I used it to self-medicate from the symptoms, which I just didn't know were there. You know what I mean? And it was just chronic, and it took a while, but my life just spiraled out of control.
And Steph, what stage of life are you at? Like whenever the heavy drinking starts, are you still at school at this stage, or are you through school?
I would say I was the alcoholic by the time I was before I turned 18, for sure.
Wow. Wow.
The last 6 months of school for me were not pleasant.
Yeah.
Everybody was turning 18, and they were just sort of introducing themselves to alcohol for the majority of them. But I'd been out clubbing since I was 16 years old and taking drugs, and not to a hardcore addictive level like I did in my 20s.
Yeah.
I was doing some pretty heavy stuff, but when I was going to these 18th birthday parties, I was drinking myself into blackout and just embarrassing myself.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand that I was alcoholic at the time because once I started, I couldn't stop. And basically nobody spoke to me when I left school because they just saw me as a drunken idiot, you know, that guy that you just didn't want to know. And that was just their way of having healthy boundaries. They didn't understand what I was going through. Nobody knew.
And so obviously that loneliness must have been a continuing thing you dealt with, even in those years.
Oh yeah, chronically lonely. And a good friend of mine says, you know, if you feel lonely, you probably don't like the person you're alone with. So, and never a truer word said.
Yeah, and we want to even reach out tonight if there is people listening. Like this is an incubator at the moment for loneliness. The times we're living in. I want to reach out to you tonight and trust that you'll find hope tonight, even through what Steph will share. But Steph, you left school, and music obviously had a keen interest on your life because you ended up going to music college. Tell us a wee bit about that.
Yeah, I went to music school when I was about 13 in Edinburgh, a really prestigious one, which was weird because there wasn't really anybody in my family that was that musical except my great uncle. But I got into the school. I didn't really fit in there either because most of the kids that were there were. I was quite lower class. I didn't talk the same, you know. I didn't. I came from Musselburgh, which was kind of looked down upon a little bit, but I did my best. Music kind of held everything together for me at that point. It was the glue, and it was something I could always rely on. It was like my pal, you know, and I just loved it, man. And when I did audition for music college, I ended up going to the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, and it was a blessing. It really was, because prestigious music school, and it was a chance for a fresh start. So I started going there in 1998, but where most students get their student loans and a chance to, you know, buy books and stuff, I spent it on booze and PlayStation 1 and, you know, show my age there, you know what I mean? But, you know, I had no concept of what it was like to manage money. I was literally a 13-year-old laddie living as an adult and just had no sense of responsibility at all. And the RSMD were brilliant. They really, really tried to help me. But I was drinking like a bottle of vodka a night halfway through my first year, and that was before I went out. You know what I mean? So I mean, I'm a big man now, but like back then, I was just a skinny wee. You know, I was a racing snake. You know, it was just full of beans and like nothing to me. So like, but I could have my drink, like, you know, and I just built up this massive tolerance. But eventually that had its consequences. And at the end of my first year, I had my first sort of breakdown and prescribed antidepressants, and I think that was when I had my first suicide attempt as well. It was pretty dark, man. But you know, I kept on trying and I kept on going, and they did help. But eventually, after 3 years at the academy, I failed my exams, and they said, "Look, we're gonna have to ask you to leave because you haven't actually passed." So I ended up going to university to finish my degree.
So obviously, there's a lot of things you're touching on here. Obviously, you know, you obviously just really didn't want to be alive at times, then, Steph. And is there anything else you want to say about that? maybe our people tonight actually listening, out of all these hundreds, there's probably a number of people listening maybe feel a wee bit like that. We're just feel like life isn't worth living anymore.
Yeah, I think that's quite a common thing. I mean, it's been a common thing. I'm not ashamed to admit it, that I've been to see the doctor twice in 2020 with suicidal thoughts. And I know that is my brain's way of trying to escape pain, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm an alcoholic, and I have a sponsor, and he tells me that, you know, it's okay to think about drinking. It's, you're going to have these thoughts, you know. It doesn't mean that you have to act on it. What you can do is reach out and talk to somebody about it and find out that somebody does actually feel the same way.
Yeah.
So once I started thinking, okay, I must be pretty low if I'm thinking that this is looking like the best solution, because I might have thought in the past that I didn't want to live anymore, but it was purely because, and this is just me personally, I couldn't cope with the pain anymore, because if I'd have been in a different mindset and I'd been emotionally quite grounded and able to talk about how I was feeling, I don't think I would have been thinking that suicide was an attractive option, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, I couldn't find any other way to process my emotional brokenness, and suicide looked like an attractive option because it looked like the only solution, and it wasn't. I just didn't know that there were solutions out there, and it was reaching out and being honest about how I felt, and it was nothing to be ashamed about.
Yeah. Really do appreciate your openness tonight, honestly, because these are real life, raw realities that people are going through, and in what I do, Steph, and what you do, we're meeting people all the time, and this is the experience that people are at, and we want to address it. And if you are in that place tonight, we ask you to stay with us to the end, because you're going to hear about a God who can bring hope and can bring beauty out of the ashes of our lives. And Steph, there's a song that you wrote called Snake Eyes. I think it would be really appropriate to play it sort of at this stage of your story. The sort of music is great for sort of drilling home how you're feeling. Do you want to just introduce the song before we play it?
Yeah, so Snake Eyes is a blues I wrote. The blues is great because you can basically moan about anything. You know? it still sounds cool, like, you know. Yeah. Snake Eyes is a term used in the casino when you play a game involving dice, and when you hit a double one, your loss is looking you back, staring you in the face. And that's how I felt when I looked in the mirror. I felt like a loser, but it's because I'd ran away from pain and challenge and fear my whole life. I didn't realize that the only way to overcome or process these emotions was to stand and face them, or sit with them, or, as I'll get onto later, develop a compassionate relationship to it. And I'd also like to say, because the video you're going to play, this is from my gig that I did in 2019 through Stable, who I've got a wonderful website, and they gave me this video to use. So
yeah, it's actually a great edition of the song, so it is. So enjoy it at home, but also think about what Steph's singing, and actually try and get into the story here, that what is going on at this stage. And when we come back on, there's going to be a bit of a twist and a turnaround to the story. So enjoy Snake Eyes.
Raging water's been running through my soul. Raging water's been running through my soul, drowning me in agony, tenderly and slow. Raging water's been running through my soul. Yeah, I'm overcome. See how I run. Feels like that heat is gonna get me. Don't look now before the fire burns. Feels like that heat is gonna burn me. And I sold my soul when I took another roll of the dice. Look at them snake eyes. Look at them snake eyes. There's a silence been hanging in my heart. Empty silence been hanging in my heart. And the tears I cried let me dry, pulling me apart. There's a silence that's been hanging in my heart. Yeah, I'm overcome. See how I run. Feels like that heat is gonna get me. Don't look now before the fire burns. Feels like that heat is gonna burn me. And I sold my soul and I took another roll of the dice. Look at them snake eyes. Look at them snake eyes. Shame has cast a shadow over me. Shame has cast a shadow over me. I won't deny I have lied, the color what you see. Oh, shame has cast a shadow over me. Shame has cast a shadow over me. Shame has cast a shadow over me. And I won't deny that I have light, the color what you see. Oh, shame has cast a shadow over me. Yeah, I'm overcome. Oh, see how I run. Feels like that heat is gonna get me. Don't look now before the fire burns. Feels like that heat is gonna burn me. And I sold my soul when I took another roll and I died. Look at them snake eyes. Look at them snake eyes.
Fantastic. Great song, but really just drills home again what you were saying, Steph. You can really feel the emotions of what was going on in your life at that stage. And love you to sort of talk a wee bit about, obviously things escalated out of control before then you went to the Bethany Christian Centre. Do you want to take a few minutes to talk about that stage and that transition?
Yeah, anybody that's had any experience with addiction, whether it's themselves or it's somebody that's related to somebody that's. I think the statistics are there are 4 people directly affected by anybody who's an addict. And it's such a powerful thing, addiction, and but you don't become an addict or an alcoholic overnight. It takes they call it the progression, and it took a good 10 years for me to progress to the point where I was homeless on the streets of Edinburgh. And for me, there's different reasons. Different people have different stories, but for me, I chose to become homeless. I just come back from living in Thailand for a year, which was a disaster. I was drinking about 2 or 3 bottles of whiskey a day, which was it left me absolutely bonkers. And I ended up getting prescribed really heavy medication upon arriving back in the UK at the local mental health hospital. And they told me that I was clinically depressed, and I also was an alcoholic. And I managed to stay 6 weeks sober, and I started drinking. And my mum and dad were beside themselves with worry. But to me, they were just getting on my nerves because they were getting in the way of what I needed, which was alcohol. So I decided to leave home. At that point, I was staying with my mum. I left home, and I was given a room and a bed sit by the council, and but this was back before Freeview. I think I had one working channel, and I managed to drink my benefits in the better part of a day or two. I mean, the amount of alcohol that I consumed at the height of my addiction was unbelievable. And once I started drinking, I would very often black out, and I got kicked out a lot of these. In fact, most of the homeless hostels, that was half the reason I spent a year bouncing in and out of homeless hostels, sleeping rough or sofa surfing, because when I was drunk, I thought people were trying to attack me, and I used to get really violent, and I didn't realize that until recently with the post-traumatic stress disorder stuff that I was having. I was reliving trauma, and it was triggering stuff, and I would try and protect myself by getting aggressive. So very often I would sleep rough, not all the time, but I did. And, sleeping rough for some of the winter in 2005 was just awful. And the cold and just trying to beg in the streets, it was just awful with the DTs from the alcohol. And the cold was the worst part of it, man, because it's just such a slow killer, and it's you're cold from the inside out. But I knew that if I didn't do something, I was going to die. And I reached out to a few places, and I was given an interview where I met Dave Bidoff, who we were speaking about, who's just a wonderful man. And he gave me the opportunity to go and live in Bethany. And it was the 13th of February 2006 that I moved in there.
That's incredible. And Big Dave, as you call him, married a listening ski girl, or what we would say here, Steph, a ski girl, and which is literally maybe just only a few miles from the church. So he's been in Brookborough, and he's a great guy, Steph. And so it's a very small world. But Steph, how did you find it? Like, obviously, going from being homeless and a lot of drinking, going into because Bethany Centre is very much Christian orientated, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What was that? That must have been a bit of a culture shock for you.
It was warm, and and they had food.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they talked about Jesus was quite far down my list of priorities at that point, and they do make it very clear that they have a recovery program which is very faith-based and Christ-centered.
Yeah.
But when you're hurting enough, you're willing to listen to anybody. And it's not the first time I'd been introduced to the church or Jesus or anything like that. My gran used to take me to church up in the Isle of Lewis when I was a kid, and my mum took me to the odd Sunday school service, and the youth club in Musselburgh was run by some wonderful Christian people, where we used to go on day trips and stuff like that with the local youth mob and stuff like that. So it wasn't my first introduction to faith stuff. I just never took it seriously until my time in Bethany, for sure. So it was a shock, but you know what, man?
Yeah.
You know, coming in off the streets and having a bed was a culture shock at that point.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And obviously, this is the place where life had a pretty dramatic turnaround in the compass of your life. And obviously, if we ended the story there, it would be pretty depressing and sad. But there's hope, and there is something to be, there's something to celebrate tonight, and that is that you're still here to tell your story, Steph, because of someone who has literally saved your life. And I'd love you just to introduce that part of your life. Like, how did that all come about? Tell us a bit about it.
Bethany just doing great stuff. They've got a great program of groups and one-to-one stuff and activities for the guys. And they would take you places. We'd play football. They'd sometimes take us for dinner. There was a poster up on the notice board that said, I think it was Evening of Music and Testimony. And that was the main event. But above it, I think they printed this out just for me, free 5-course dinner. And, you know, I come from Musselburgh, so you got a 3-course dinner usually at Christmas, which was, your special occasion. So being naturally curious and a bit of a foodie, I decided to go to the event. In fact, most of us went, and the dinner was lovely. And there was some praise and worship, which was, it wasn't the kind of music that I listened to, but it was very. They were very enthusiastic. I'll give them that. And then a chap stood up and gave his testimony. Wonderful man. He's a friend of mine now. Amazing minister called Cammy McKenzie, and he spoke about. I thought he was going to start talking about how his life was, how he. How he was so good and holy, and how I wasn't. And in order for me to be good and holy, I needed what he had, and that was. But that's not what happened at all. He spoke about his life, and Cammy's got an incredible testimony, and I relate to a lot of it very deeply. And I think that sense of identification made me feel like this guy really knows what he's talking about. And then he spoke about how Christ came into his life, and it also helped him to let go of the rope of he actually spoke about the chains being broken. Christ gave him the power to break the chains of the life that had been killing him, and the ability to be reborn in hope, and to walk into a new life in a relationship with Christ. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't understand what half of that meant, but I just remember I'm talking about hope and redemption and freedom from addiction. And I was like, man, I want that. I really want that. But at the same time, when he offered us the opportunity to come forward, I was like, you're going to look like an idiot, But I was like, I had nothing but the clothes on my back. And I went forward that night, and I decided that this is it, because I remember praying and thanking Jesus for coming into the world and for giving his life. And by doing that, it paid the price for my sins. And by rising from the grave, he also gave me assurance for the rest of eternity. But I also remember saying, God, I'm so sorry for what I've done. And if you can hear me, I just want a life worth living. And if that means following you, then I'm in. And I felt something move in my heart, and that was, I know now, the Holy Spirit coming into my life. And it was the first time I'd felt peace in my heart. And when you've been full of dread and fear and anxiety and self-loathing and hating yourself your whole life, to just suddenly have that sense of peace, it broke me, and I just wept. Which is very un-Scottish. And but I went from a guy who thought he was the center of the universe to suddenly looking out and realizing that I wasn't alone anymore.
Wow. That's incredible. And obviously that started a journey with Jesus. And I what I'd love about the way that you do your music and you talk even before or after your songs. You talk about Jesus like you know him personally, and that you always unashamedly say that you love him. He's your best friend. He's everything to you. Just tell me a wee bit, like, to those who maybe are skeptical tonight and say, okay, Jesus saved you, all of that. You genuinely are confessing that you have like a personal friendship and relationship with this God.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't confess that I was the best friend.
Yeah.
I'd probably fall far short of that, but I know Jesus is always there for me.
Mm-hmm.
I I always I'm far from perfect, and more often than not, I am an absolute genuine mess.
Yeah.
But I am God's mess,
Yeah.
and He seems to make beautiful things out of that,
Praise God.
which is quite cool. And I've survived every tough day I've ever been through, and I wouldn't wish the things I've been through upon anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got through it, and God's carried me through the times where I just didn't think I could go on. He has taught me more about myself, my pain, my shame, and my suffering, because of who He is and because of the way that He loves me compassionately.
Wow.
I can come to Him with anything,
Mm-hmm.
and no amount of pain can overwhelm Him. He can only pour out His love on me, and that doesn't mean to say this. What it's going to fix all my problems.
Yeah.
It's not, because when I gave my life to Christ that night, I went back to the home hostel. It wasn't like, here's a Ferrari, you know what I mean? It was I went home with gratitude that night for having nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first time I remember being grateful in my life as an adult for having nothing,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing except the air in my lungs, and I had hope for tomorrow
Wow.
with no expectations other than just being grateful for having Jesus in my life. And
Wow.
that, you cannot put a price on that,
Mm.
to just be great, because without those expectations, everything's a blessing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I call a true friendship. For all that He's done for me, I am willing to follow.
Wow. Amazing. Steph, tell me about actually, this is very much on stage tonight, guys. So thanks to Steph, he's just answering whatever we ask. But obviously loneliness was a big part. Did you find all of a sudden then nearly there was a sense where you weren't alone now?
Certainly. And I think there are times in my life, and I'm talking the last 15 years of being a Christian, there are times where I feel very, very connected to God, and like absolutely in the presence of God, and loneliness feels so far from
Yeah.
where I am. And there are times where I feel so lonely. Like, 2020 melted my brain, man, you know?
Yeah.
And it was so far removed from what I was used to. And I just felt very, very lonely. And those old thoughts and feelings and stuff came back in. And I knew that a lot of it, most of it was nonsense. You know, it was all nonsense. But when you tell yourself something often enough, you start to believe it. You know, so if
Yeah.
you're looking at yourself in the mirror and saying you're a loser, you're no good to anybody. You do start to believe that stuff. I would never say that to anybody. You know, that's abuse, and yet I
Yeah.
justify it because I say it to myself. So there are times like that when I just give myself such a hard time, and I'm so consumed with self.
Yes.
I'm so consumed with self that God's there, but I just can't hear Him because of the own voice in my head. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's when I let that go and actually say, "All right, God, I'm going to hand that over." In fact, the best way I've ever actually managed to deal with that is actually by serving others. So
Yeah.
if you're struggling with that inner critic, get out there and love somebody the way Jesus did.
Yeah.
Because I mean that saved my bacon like 5 years ago. Long story again, but it was through serving others and loving others without any expectation in return that I started to see a little bit of what Christ sees in me, and that was the changer. Unfortunately, in 2020, because everybody's been restricted, I've not been able to do that in the same context. So a lot of these
Yes.
thoughts and behaviour started to creep in, and I was like, man, I'm just glad I survived, to be honest with you. I know Jesus is there all the time, but sometimes I can't hear God's speaking at me because I'm more interested in what I've got to say, and usually what I've got to say to myself isn't very good.
Yeah. Yeah. And Look here, folks. I hope this is really blessing you. There's some real gold dust here. So take it on board. And what Steph's saying is happening in his life. This can happen for you. And Steph, you wrote a song which we have played a number of occasions. So we heard a song that sort of represented those real heavy, dark times. But then you wrote a song, When I Found Jesus, and it's a beautiful song. It would be a song would nearly get me emotional, because I picture many different stories that I have heard of people who have been in the pit and God rescued them. Do you want to introduce that song, and then we'll play it, and then just hear sort of the final stage of your story?
Sure. When I found Jesus, I remember writing it quite vividly, and I just sat down and said, right, if I had the one song to sing to somebody and I just wanted to tell them what Christ done in my life, what would I say? And that's just what I wrote down. I just thought, tell them the truth. Tell them the absolute truth. And that's what came out. And, everybody has their own rock bottom. In fact, going through life, we all have different rock bottoms for sure. And I think that's why we can all relate to different people's songs at times, whether they're happy, they're sad, or they're challenging, you know what I mean? And this is just my song about how I found Christ, and it's just my testimony in a song, man. That's it.
Yeah, and it's a real cracker. One of my favorite over lockdown. And so, guys, I know you will really, really enjoy this. So enjoy it. When I Found Jesus.
When I found Jesus, he was holding on to me. I was broken, I couldn't stand on my own 2 feet. Said a word and broke my chains. I was free to breathe again. My life was saved by the love and blood of Jesus. When I found Jesus, he was standing over me. I was down and out, I'd been living on the streets. There were times that I could have died, oh, but the Lord was by my side. And I didn't know it then, I've been saved by the blood of Jesus. He took the weight off my shoulders and came and gave me rest. And gave me peace from my troubles. And Lord, I have been blessed. When I found Jesus, he was walking next to me. On the lonely path of my man-made destiny. He must have looked into my eyes and saw my tears and heard my cries. For where I stood, I was saved by the blood of Jesus. Oh. And the empty promises of the world, they had forsaken me. They left me in the wilderness. It was Jesus who rescued me. He called my name. He called my name. Yes, he called my name. And I would never be the same, no. Just one touch from the King of Kings. It changed everything. He changes everything. He changes everything. He changes everything. Oh, when I found Jesus, he was heavy on my heart. And I was lost for words, man, I didn't know where to start. I believe, but more than that I have received. My sins have been paid by the love and blood of Jesus. I am saved by the blood of Jesus. It took a weight off my shoulders and came and gave me rest. He came and gave me rest. Gave me peace from my troubles. And Lord, I have been blessed. My Lord, I have been blessed. Oh, Jesus, I am blessed. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. I was blind, but now, Lord, I see.
Class. How about that, folks? A great song, isn't it? And you can get all these songs. Go on to YouTube, Spotify. You'll get all of Steph's music there. Steph, we're quickly running out of time, but tell us a wee bit. So you obviously came out of Bethany, and how was life? And tell us a wee bit of the highlights since those days, Steph.
Started going to church. I made friends. One of them ended up becoming my wife, and I also gained a son, and then we had 2 more kids. And I started writing songs when I was in Bethany. I when I was in the homeless hostel, mostly about addiction and stuff. But as I started spending more time with Dave and getting involved with Christian music, I started writing about my faith, and then got a chance to record an album. And in 2010, released my first album, and was told that that's what I was meant to do with the rest of my life. So share the gospel through music and testimony. And I've traveled the world, done quite a lot of charity work. I'm heavily invested into prison ministry and the recovery community, homeless in this as well, that kind of stuff. I got quite sick about 2013-14. I was still quite heavily medicated when I came out of Bethany, but I couldn't cope with the stress of full-time work and just regular stuff I ended up relapsing. Unfortunately, it just didn't make any sense. But I ended up, after going through some pretty tough stuff, I ended up in hospital for a while, where I was told that I had trauma from my childhood and also from being homeless, which I needed help from. So they took me off a lot of medication that I'd been abusing and justifying because I got it from the doctor. And then I got into recovery in a very big way, but it also helped me to reconnect with God massively. I started writing about my emotional brokenness. I just didn't understand what emotions were because I didn't grow up in that environment. But I released my album Gold, which is all about raising awareness about mental health and emotional transparency. And I wrote most of that when I was in hospital. And through that, I got asked if I wanted to work with Integrity Music, which is a record label based in the south of England and in Nashville. And I've recently just released my first worship single, which is a part of a new EP, which should be out in less than a month. And that is a very short version, man.
That is really well done there, actually. That was brilliant. Yeah. So family man now, 3 kids, and some days it just feels a success to get to bedtime when you've got young kids.
Well, they're one of the joys. Like, trust me, it's I'm my own worst enemy at times. I think my sponsor says, like, my head's like a bad neighborhood. I don't want to walk around there on my own. So my phone's my best friend, man, because I still convince myself of stuff that's not true. But it's, you know what I mean? It's like you just got to shower yourself with the love of Jesus at times, you know, and give yourself
Yeah.
some much needed love, because it's I think if you're like me, I find it a lot easier to love other people, but struggle with loving myself quite a lot. And very often, I know God loves me, but sometimes I'll say, you know, I don't deserve that love. You know, I've done some bad stuff. And but like every Dave Biddulph had said to me, you know, if you were to stand before the cross and see Christ,
Yeah.
would you really be able to say to yourself, is that not enough?
Yeah.
I mean, what more do you need to convince you
Mhm.
that Christ has paid the price for everything? You know.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. So I know in the eyes and heart of God that I am worth more than I can ever possibly begin to fathom.
Yeah. And that's that we really want to sort of push that home tonight to everybody listening, that you know, maybe you've done the church thing. Maybe you've met a Christian who's put you off, but we want you to see who Jesus really is tonight. And Steph, what would your advice be just to that person who's maybe a skeptic, maybe has tried it before? What would your sort of closing remarks to that person be tonight about Jesus?
He's right there. He's right there, and he's alive.
Mm-hmm.
He loves you, and no matter what you think of yourself, Christ will always think the most of you.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a part of that relationship. You just need to ask him into your life, and that's okay. You know, you might think that you're going to sound stupid. I've got a friend who said every time I get into prayer, my head's telling me you look like an idiot. But you know, it's that's your voice based on the world we live in that can convince you that stuff. It's utter nonsense, man.
Mm-hmm.
In the eyes of the kingdom, I have young daughters, and I love it when they come and tell me that they're happy. But when they come and tell me that they're struggling, or they're embarrassed, or they're angry, or they're sad, I am overwhelmed with gratitude and love that they can come to me and trust me to be on that journey with them.
Yeah.
And I know from that, I mean, why can't I go to my Father in heaven and be that honest? You know, and Christ is there to intercede for us.
Yeah.
Jesus will walk every step of the way with you, and he will love you, and no amount of pain or shame can overwhelm him, because he paid for it all on the cross. So I would say pray. I would reach out to your friends who have a relationship with Jesus and ask them what Jesus means to them. You know, just go exploring. You know, the truth's out there. Don't take my word for it.
Yeah.
Don't take my word for it, because this isn't about me, right?
Yeah.
This isn't about me. This is about you and Jesus. It's about your relationship with Jesus. I write my songs because I love Jesus and I'm grateful, and I will do that until my dying day. And you know what? If that can enrich your life with Christ, amazing. But it's about you and Christ, and that's the important thing. So just go out and explore, ask the tough questions, and pray. You know, I dare you to pray and see what happens, man.
Very good, class, brilliant, great advice, and so real, so honest, and that's what I've really enjoyed about tonight. This has been so real, and really appreciate you, Steph, opening up your heart, your mind, your life, your walk with God, your songs, opening up every area to us tonight. And with so much we could talk on tonight, but I just want to quickly just say that if you haven't already, go on to either Steph's social media or onto the music platforms. He brought a single out last week, which you need to listen to. His first song with Integrity. It's fantastic. The EP will be coming out as well very soon. Steph as well, this is the part everyone always feels awkward talking about. But if people want to buy your music or support you, how do they do that?
Well, there is my own stuff, which is available on my website. I know you spoke about giving away CDs earlier, but I don't actually have any to give away at the moment. So it's I've got them on order, but I will be posting that. So if you want to like my Facebook page, that'd be great. I do have a Patreon thing if you want to support regularly. I'm part of a wonderful ministry called Celtic Worship. That was the first video you saw. Now they've got a website which is celticworship.co.uk. You're just getting that right. They have lots of CDs, which is old hymns done with bagpipes and fiddles and stuff like that. And I have the privilege of being a singer in that ministry. But there are 7 of us who are just they're just amazing. They're like family. So please go and check them out. They're all over social media as well, and they have their own YouTube channel. But if you want to get in touch and support, you can get in touch with my website or YouTube or the Patreon or anything like that, or here on Facebook. And I do little worship nights and the odd event and stuff like that. So just get in touch and press the like and notifications and all that stuff. It's I'm not very good at that stuff. I just go on and talk my mind, really. So my heart.
Yeah, but really do, guys. Please do. And if this has blessed you tonight, just report back into the comments. Say, let us know your thoughts on this evening. And on your behalf, I want to say a big, big thank you, Steph, for just what you've shared with us tonight, imparted into lives. And we just want to say tonight, if you are maybe struggling, you're in a season you're really, really finding it difficult, and you just need somebody, look here, our details on this page, private message this page tonight. We'll get in touch with you. We're just here to help you in any way we can. We're look here, me and Steph's no different to any of you. We're all trying to get through this life, trusting in Jesus then to take us to heaven. And if you don't have Jesus in your life, look, he's there. Ask him in tonight. Ask him to forgive you. Doesn't matter what you've done, folks. He'll forgive you. I want to leave you with two songs tonight as you are leaving. One from the Celtic guys again. As Steph is lead singing this. It's "Be Thou My Vision." So just let us set Jesus as the vision for this year, guys. And then want to leave you with Steph's new single, "No Other God," and you'll be really blessed. So Steph, really appreciate your company tonight. And if you ever come into Ireland, come down to Fermanagh, and they would love to host you for a night, if that's ever possible.
I would. It would be an honour, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Serving Jesus is the greatest privilege I've ever known. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. So welcome. Have a great night. Have a great year, Steph, and to your family and everyone who's tuned in with us. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Just let me remind you, our next online events will be Tuesday night. On Tuesday night, we'll be live at 9 p.m. Myself, Craig, and Ashley. We would love your company on Tuesday night. And then next Sunday night, we have Colin and Joanna Tinsley. Great, great people from not too far from here in Northern Ireland. So, yeah, we'll be with them next Sunday night. But from myself and Steph tonight, good night, folks. God bless you.
Thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my life. Be thou my wisdom and thou my true word. I ever with thee and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, and I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. heed not nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou art thou only, the first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. My treasure thou art. High King of heaven, my victory won. May I reach heaven's joys, oh bright heaven's sun. Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, oh ruler of no other God can judge the weight of sin that dwells in us, and yet amid His grace, His blood declares my guilt erased. What is this love, this ancient hope? You come to me with righteous robes, clothing me in your salvation. No other God I know would ever reign to bow so low, that He would make a way to rise again in victory. What is this love, this ancient hope? You come to me with righteous robes, clothing me in your salvation. You see my pain, you hear my doubts, and in the pains you fix a crown, adorning me with your salvation. And I lift my eyes, my head held high, I know that I will fear no evil. You call my name, I rise again, and your mercy brought my heart's revival. What is this love, this ancient hope. You come to me with righteous robes, clothing me in your salvation. You see my pain, you hear my doubts, and in their place you fix a crown, adorning me with your